Let me repeat to you one promise that I've made for months.
We're going live now with Bernie Sanders in Edwardsville, Illinois. The newsroom will follow this event.
She is loud and clear that they will vote to overturn Citizens United. What we talk about in this campaign is a corrupt campaign finance system and a rigged economy. What does that mean, a rigged economy? Let me give you an example. You got governors all over this country who are talking about welfare abuse. They're worried about poor people ripping off the welfare system. Let me tell you what really goes on. And when you want to talk about welfare abuse, I want all of you to understand that the major welfare abuser in this country is not some poor mother. It is the wealthiest family in this country, the Walton family of Walmart. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that Walmart, owned by the wealthiest family in America, the Waltons, pays wages so low that many of their employees are forced to go on Medicaid, food stamps, or go into subsidized housing. Who is paying for those food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing? You are. So what you got is the middle class of this country, through higher taxes, is subsidizing the Walton family that is not paying their workers a living wage. So I say to the Walton family, worth some $60, $70 billion, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. See, that's what a rigged economy is about, when you have to subsidize the wealthiest family in America. Now, when we talk about creating an economy that works for all of us, what do we have to do? Number one, we've got to recognize that a $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a starvation wage. I have talked to workers all across this country, and what they tell me is, Bernie, we can't make it on $7.25 an hour. We can't make it on $8. We can't make it on $9 an hour. And they're right. And that is why we have got to raise the minimum wage in this country to a living wage, $15 an hour. I have talked, now one of the things about this campaign is talking about issues that the media chooses not to talk about. And the reason is, number one, these are too complicated. You can't say them in a 3-second soundbite. Or else they run into conflicts of interest with the people who own the media. But here is an issue that we have got to address. A great nation is not judged by the number of millionaires and billionaires it has. It is judged by how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable amongst us. And when we talk about weak and vulnerable, we're talking about little kids. We're talking about kids living in poverty, kids who have nothing. Kids who are going to totally inadequate child care facilities. And we are also talking about senior citizens. I have talked to seniors, and this doesn't get much discussion, but all across this country you have seniors and disabled veterans trying to make it on $12,000, $13,000 a year. Put yourself right now into the place of somebody who's 80, 85 years old, a disabled vet, a senior. You got health care costs, you got prescription drug costs, you got to keep your house warm in the winter. How do you make it on $12,000 a year? And the answer is, you don't. You don't. A moral people does not turn its back on those folks who raised us and built this country. Now, in the midst of that, in the midst of millions of seniors struggling to make it on $11,000, $12,000 a year, many Republicans actually want to cut Social Security. Well, I've got news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. And we are going to make sure that the veterans of this country, the people who put their lives on the line to defend us, get the health care and the benefits that they earned. Now, this campaign is successful because we are listening to people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. I don't go around this country sitting in mansions, collecting millions of dollars, hearing the woes of billionaires. There are other more important issues that I've got to worry about. And we listen to young people, and this is what young people are telling me. They're saying, Bernie, how does it happen that we have to end up $30,000, $50,000, $80,000 in debt for the crime of trying to get a decent education? What I ask of you and I ask of the American people is think outside of the box, think outside of the status quo. Take a deep breath and just ask yourself this question. Everybody here knows, everybody in America knows, that in order to compete in a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. Correct? All right. This is kind of a no-brainer. A no-brainer. To have the best educated workforce, we have got to encourage young people to get all of the education that they need. We should not be punishing people for getting an education. We should encourage people to get an education. You want to hear crazy? Here's crazy. Talk to a young person in Iowa, went to college for 2 years, $60,000 in debt, dropped out of school. A young woman in Burlington, Vermont, my city. Her dream was to go to medical school. She accomplished that dream. Now practicing primary health care. She has $300,000 in debt. A young dentist in Iowa, $400,000 in debt. It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So we're going to do two things. Number one, in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, you cannot just continue to talk about first grade through 12th grade. The world has changed. First grade through 12th grade was a great idea 50 years ago. You had a high school degree 50 years ago. You can go out and earn a good living. That world has changed. So when I talk about public education today, it must mean free tuition at public colleges and universities. Some people say, oh, this is a radical idea. It is not a radical idea. It is not a radical. I mean, right now, tuition, college education in Germany, Scandinavia is free. All right, and it's free because they understand that the future of their countries depend on young people getting the best education that they can. So this is not a radical idea. In fact, I'll tell you this. Some of you may not know this. 50 or 60 years ago, you could go to major and excellent public colleges and universities in America virtually tuition-free. That was America back then. If we could do it 60 years ago, we damn well can do it today. Now, many of my critics say, well, that's a great idea, but how are you going to pay for it? It's just so expensive. So let me back it up a little bit. Just talked to some of the media a moment ago, and they asked this question. It's a fair question. This is what everybody here has got to understand. In the last 30 years in this country, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth. Problem is, it's gone in the wrong direction. Middle class has shrunk. Trillions of dollars have left the middle class, gone into the hands of the top 1/10 of 1%. Top 1/10 of 1% has seen a doubling in the percentage of wealth they own. Now, when the middle class was shrinking and almost all new wealth and income going to the top 1/10 of 1%, I didn't hear any of the establishment saying, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. But when some of us talk about redistributing that wealth and income back to the middle class, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened. So I'll tell you how we're going to pay. I will tell you how we're going to pay to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and substantially lower interest rates on student debt. And what we are going to do is impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. Now, all of you know that 10 years ago or so, Wall Street's greed, illegal behavior, and recklessness drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Now, after Wall Street did that, they went to the Congress and they said, please bail us out. Against my vote, Congress did bail them out. Now, if we could bail out the crooks on Wall Street, I think it is now time for Wall Street to help the middle class. And that is why I believe we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. Every psychologist who studies human development understands that the most important years of a human being's life are 0 through 4. That's when we develop intellectually and emotionally. And yet today, when I talk to young couples with little babies, they say, Bernie, we can't afford good quality and affordable child care. We can't find that. I believe that we have got to transform our child care system, create hundreds of thousands of jobs, making sure that the littlest Americans, the youngest, the future of this country, have the early education that they deserve. This campaign has talked to the African American community. And the African American community is saying, how does it happen that we have so many people in jail? How does it happen that a black male baby born today, unless we change this, stands a 1 in 4 chance of ending up in jail? How does it happen? How does it happen that unarmed African Americans are being killed by police officers? And what that tells me, and it's not just the African American community that's upset about it, it is all Americans. We need real criminal justice reform. And let me tell you what that means. I'm a former mayor of the largest city in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont. I have worked with police officers for many, many years. The vast majority of police officers are hardworking, they are honest, and they have a very, very difficult job. But when a police officer, like any other public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. Number two, police departments should not look like occupying armies. We need to demilitarize many local police departments and make police departments do what they are supposed to do: serve the people, be part of the community. Number three, we need to do everything that we can to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities that they serve. In terms of criminal justice, we have in this nation a very, very serious problem with substance abuse and substance addiction. And we need to recognize that alcohol or drug addiction is not a criminal justice issue, it is a health care issue. Which means that we need to significantly expand our capabilities to treat substance and drug addiction. It's a huge issue that we've got to address. When we talk about criminal justice, we also have to end this concept of minimal sentencing. Judges need more discretion. When we talk about criminal justice, we need to understand that our rate of recidivism, people who leave jail, go to the civil society, they come back to jail in much too large numbers. That means that when people leave jail, they need to have the education and the job training they need so they don't get caught up in the same environment which got them into jail in the first place. This campaign is talking to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And what they are saying is that they are tired of living in fear, living under the shadows. They want and need a path toward citizenship. This campaign is talking to people in the Native American community. And I don't have to explain to anybody here that the way our country from day one has treated Native Americans is obscene. And those problems continue today. I talked to some Native American leaders in Minnesota last week. 50% of their kids today are dropping out of school, high school. Alcoholism is rampant. Poverty is off the charts. Young people are killing themselves. Drug addiction is widespread. For those people who were here first, we owe them respect and dignity. We've got to change our policies. Everybody here knows how real change comes about. It never comes about from the top on down. It always comes from the bottom on up. Here in the Midwest, 100 years ago or longer, workers said to their employers, "We will not be treated like animals. We need dignity." They stood, they fought, they were beaten up, they were jailed, they were on picket lines to form unions. So that they could engage in collective bargaining, earn decent wages and decent benefits. That's how change takes place. Change took place and takes place in the civil rights movement when the African American community and their white allies said loudly, "No, this country will not continue racism, segregation, and bigotry." And millions of people demanded change. A 100 years ago today, women did not have the right to vote. They did not have the right to go to many schools or do the jobs that they wanted to do. 100 years ago, not a long time in history. And yet women and their male allies said, "Sorry, women in this country will not continue to be second-class citizens." If we were in this room 10 years ago, and I'm talking about how real change takes place, if we were in this room 10 years ago, which is no time at all from an historical perspective, somebody jumped up and said, I think gay marriage will be made legal in 50 states of this country in the year 2015. The person next to him would have said, "What are you smoking?" Which raises another interesting issue. But what happened? And this is what change is about. It's the most important point I think I can make to you. What happened is the gay community and their straight allies said, "You know what? In America," and believe me, against enormous opposition and hatred, gay community said, in this country, people should have the right to love whoever they want, regardless of gender. And today, and you cannot appreciate how rapidly that transformation has taken place. Today you go to high schools in my state of Vermont, conservative areas, and you ask kids about gay marriage, and they say, "What's the issue? We don't know what the issue is." That's what a revolutionary change is about. When you And I'll give you another example, even more contemporary. If we were here 7 years ago, and somebody jumped up and said, "Bernie, this $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a disaster." I was in Detroit a couple of years ago, and I talked to young people working at McDonald's. These were adults. Some of them had kids. $7.25 an hour, 20 hours a week, got on a bus, went to a different McDonald's, trying to make a living. Now, 7, 8 years ago, somebody said, "We got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour." People would say, "Are you crazy? That's doubling the minimum wage. We can't. That's just too radical an idea." But you know what happened? Because people in the fast food industry, at McDonald's, at Burger King, at Wendy's, all these places, they stood up and they fought back. And you know what happened? A couple of years ago in Seattle, $15 an hour minimum wage. In San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Oregon, $15 an hour minimum wage. And that's what we have to do nationally. So what is my point? My point is that an idea whether it is civil rights and the idea, just another example, again, you take it for granted, but don't. If we were here 40 years ago and somebody said, oh, in 2008, we're going to elect an African American as president of the United States, nobody would have believed it. And this has nothing to do whether you like Obama, you don't like Obama. It is the fact that the American people overcame centuries of racism and said, you know what, we're going to vote for somebody based on his ideas and not the color of his skin. A big deal. So my point is that when my opponent or anybody else says, well, Bernie's a nice guy, but he's thinking too big, making public colleges and universities tuition free. Oh, that is a crazy idea. It is not a crazy idea. We can make it happen. And mark my words, if millions of students and young people demand it, it will happen. And then 20 years from now, some guy or woman will be up here and she'll say, well, you know, 20 years ago, public colleges and universities weren't tuition free. And people say, that's crazy. How could that be? That's how change comes about. Have a vision. Be prepared to stand up and fight for what is right. Now, I want to just say a few words about some of the significant differences between Secretary Clinton and myself. Number one, and this is a very profound difference. Secretary Clinton has a number of super PACs. In the last reporting period, her largest super PAC collected $15 million from Wall Street. Now, every politician in the world, Democrat or Republican, always says, oh, yes, I get all this money from Wall Street and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry. Doesn't impact me. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Well, then the question that we have to ask is, if it doesn't matter, why are these people pouring millions of dollars into your campaign? Now, there's a lot that I can say about the greed and recklessness and fraudulent behavior of Wall Street, but what I will also say is they are not dumb. They do not throw their money around for no reason at all. Second of all, Secretary Clinton has given major speeches behind closed doors to Wall Street, receiving $225,000 a speech. Now, what I think is, if you're going to get paid $225,000 for a speech to Wall Street, it must be a really fantastic speech. And it's surely a speech you're going to want to share with the American people, right? So I would hope that the Secretary is prepared to share that extraordinary $225,000 speech with all of us. Second issue, an issue the media doesn't cover very much, but it is of enormous consequence for our country and for the Midwest in particular. We have had, for the last 30 plus years, disastrous trade policies. I know it's not a sexy issue, but it is an enormously important issue. And what these trade agreements are about, NAFTA, CAFTA, Permanent Normal Trade Relations with China, Trans-Pacific Partnership, what these trade agreements are about is, number one, by and large, they are written by corporate America and the big money interests. These are the guys who write it. And what do they want? What they want is to have an agreement which enables them to shut down manufacturing plants in the United States of America, so they don't have to pay workers here in Illinois or Michigan or Ohio $20, $25 an hour. They don't have to pay them a decent wage. They don't have to negotiate with unions. They don't have to protect environmental laws. They can shut down here. They can go to Mexico. They can go to China. They can go to Vietnam. They can go to very low-wage countries. And then they can bring their products back into this country. Here's what's happened since 2001. Since 2001 in America, we have lost almost 60,000 factories, millions of decent-paying jobs. Our disastrous trade policies are one of the reasons as to why that has happened. People have lost good-paying jobs, then they go out and work for jobs paying them $8 or $9 an hour. You can't make it on that. Now, on that issue, I will tell you that from day one, I understood what these trade agreements were about. I knew that they were designed to protect corporate America at the expense of working people. I voted and helped lead the opposition against virtually every one of these trade agreements. On the other hand, Secretary Clinton supported NAFTA. She supported permanent normal trade relations with China. Those agreements have cost us millions of jobs as a nation, hit the Midwest particularly hard. If elected president, trust me, we will have a new set of trade policies. Corporate America wants us to buy their products. They tell us that every night in 30-second TV ads. If they want us to buy their products, the time is overdue for them to start manufacturing those products in America, not in China. Third area, foreign policy. Enormously important part of what a president does. 2002, I heard, listen very carefully when I was a member of the House, what George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and all those people were saying about Iraq. I listened carefully. I didn't believe what they said. I voted against the war in Iraq. And it gives me no joy to tell you, but if you go to my website, berniesanders.com, hear what I said in 2002 about what would happen when a political vacuum developed in Iraq after Saddam Hussein was overthrown. It's not just good enough to overthrow dictators. You got to be thinking about what happens the day after. That war in Iraq is the worst foreign policy disaster in the modern history of America. I voted against that war. Secretary Clinton supported that war, voted for it. 1996, there was a homophobic piece of legislation brought forth by right-wing Republicans. It was called the so-called Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA. What it said is that if a gay couple were married in a state that allowed for gay marriage, their marriage could not be transferred, the rights of that marriage could not be transferred to other states, and that gay married couples could not enjoy federal benefits like heterosexual couples. Now, the world has changed in the last 20 years, but back in 1996, voting against that homophobic legislation was not an easy vote. Vast majority of members of Congress did not vote against DOMA. I did. Secretary Clinton supported DOMA. Now, when we talk about the issues facing our country, I want to tell you that I am a member of the Senate Committee on the Environment and the Senate Committee on Energy. Let there be no doubt. I don't want anybody in this room to have any doubt about it. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already wreaking havoc in our country and around the world, and don't let anybody tell you differently. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for future generations. We have got to have the guts to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And when we think, and when we talk about thinking outside of the box, envisage an energy system which is based on energy efficiency and sustainable energy. We can do that. And when we think big, please understand, there is one major country on earth, the United States, that does not guarantee health care to all of its people. The United Kingdom does it, France does it, Germany does it, Scandinavia does it, Holland does it, our neighbors to the north, Canada does it. Health care for all. Now, I've been criticized for saying this, but let me say it again loudly and clearly. I believe health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. Yes, I believe we can take on the private insurance companies and the drug companies and pass a Medicare for all health care program. Now, one other charge thrown against me is people say, well, Bernie is a nice guy, but, you know, he's just not electable, can't win an election. So let me set the record straight. There have been a lot of polls go up and down, and polls are not all that important. But there have been a lot of polls out there, most of the polls, that put Bernie Sanders against Donald Trump. We beat him in almost all those polls. In the last CNN poll, Hillary Clinton was beating him by 8 points. We beat him by 12 points, and that's true of many polls around the country. Let me tell you why we will defeat Trump. We will defeat Trump because in America, people understand that togetherness, bringing our people together, is more important and trumps divisiveness, dividing us up. The sense of community, knowing that we are not alone, that we are here to help each other, trumps selfishness. And most importantly, what the American people profoundly understand, based in all of the teachings of every great religion on earth, is that love trumps hatred. On March 15th, there will be a primary here in Illinois. If there is a large voter turnout, if working people and young people come out and vote, we will win. Please make that happen. Thank you all.
Hey guys. Well, that's pretty bad timing. I was like running back and forth between rooms. That was Bernie in Edwardsville, Illinois. Sorry for the bad cutoff. We'll be going right to the newsroom on politicalrevolution.tv. That URL takes you there, politicalrevolution.tv. That's where we'll be doing the newsroom. We'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about trade deals. Thank you to the 220 plus that joined us right now for this. Just got that feed in. Thank you, Robin Morris, for dropping it, and other people in Slack. Again, politicalrevolution.tv. The link's on the homepage of Bernie2016.tv. That's where we're going to go watch the new room. Give me about 10 minutes to set that up, and we'll get going on that. Thanks, everybody. See you later.